She did it again. New York Attorney General Letitia James is really good at something, and that is beating Donald Trump in court. She beat him before he was unfortunately elected again, and she keeps on beating him over and over again, and most recently leading a coalition of states to basically stop the Department of Education from impounding funds that were supposed to go out to places that were delegated by Congress to go to the services that the Department of Education is supposed to do. Now, I did a whole other hot take on this on Tuesday, Harry. Linda McMahon,
right?
Just her testimony before the Senate was so disastrous. And I guess her strategy
a couple
was
little minor math errors, right?
Yeah, a couple of but by a trillion, quadrillion, bagajillion. I guess when you're a billionaire WWE wrestling executive, it doesn't really, a billion, a trillion, a quadrillion doesn't really matter. But when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and when you rely on school lunches to feed your sons or your daughters, and when the Department of Education is an essential part of providing services with children with disabilities, or it matters to the people, whether you're talking about a trillion, a gazillion, a billion. But New York Attorney General Letitia James secured another injunction before Judge Ramos in the Southern District of New York against the Trump regime. And I just loved reading this order from federal Judge Ramos. He was like, all right, here we go again. We're really going to be dealing with this idiocracy before me, but I guess we are. Yes, I do have jurisdiction. Wait a minute, you're now bringing up some other thing that you've never brought up before for the first time to try to divest me of jurisdiction. I'm not playing these games, Trump administration. New York Attorney General Letitia James, you win. Department of Education, fund the things you're supposed to fund. Do your damn job. Harry, break it down for us, though, what went down.
So it's
wrinkle with the bond also. There's some interesting stories.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, too. And it's 100% true. And he's not taking giving them any slack or taking any guff. And by the way, one thing about James, she really does have this bring it on posture. She's the exact opposite of the people who are capitulating. And so far, he's now trying hard to come after her, but she's been beating him pretty lumpy and bumpy. Okay, this is hundreds of millions of dollars that the 16 states and DC are entitled to that Congress has previously allocated. And in their brazen, just because we can way, the administration said, we're not going to give it out. And the judge said, oh, yes, you are. Here's an order. And they actually came back and said, we decided, again, we're not going to. Why not? Because we've made a internal determination that the COVID virus and emergency is all said and done, even though Congress had held the other way. And the judge said, no, you're not. Congress had held the other way. And he did something. There were two words in this opinion that you don't see very much. Brown versus Board of Education. It ordered the states to comply with all deliberate speed. And the Supreme Court a few times has said, give them as room so they do it as practicable. Ramos says, give the money back without delay. That means like tomorrow. Now, if they come forward, he didn't say 36 hours. Their judges are getting savvy about not wanting to put themselves in positions where there's a conflict with the administration. There's, nothing they can do about it. Like if they come forward and say, well, the processing of checks on the B4 forms is really going to take another, whatever. But what he said is without delay. And then this other point that you were making, Ben, in the big, beautiful bill, they've slipped in this provision, just a sweetheart little deal, a kind of poison pill for Donald Trump to make people have trouble getting injunctive relief or moving for contempt, because the provision that they've slipped in says you have to post a bond. If somebody if the judge is giving you a stay and it would cost the other side $10 million, you got to put up $10 million. Guess what? Very few litigants, and one thing if it's the state of New York, another if it's the ACLU or others who are representing, say, the aliens, they couldn't put it up. But the judge was very aware of this point. First, he dryly remarked about this is from the big, beautiful bill. Yes. And he then made it clear, express, I don't care what happens to the bill. My order is going to stand. It doesn't mean anything what's in there. And he specifically, at the request of New York, let them post a bond, as you're required to do, for $1,000. Which is like what pocket change from meter violations in one borough in New York for a couple hours. So obviously, going with the notion of a bond, but nominally only, so that New York isn't impeded whatsoever. So he's made it clear he doesn't want any excuses, including something that's in the big beautiful bill. That the Department of Education, this money that has already been appropriated by Congress for the states, it's got to go to the states. And again, I'm not sure I've even seen these kind of remedial words in another opinion. Without delay. That means now. And, if they dither around for more than a very little bit, the Ramos hammer is going to come down and hard.
That's what I saw the Democrats, during the hearing with Linda McMahon kind of pounding on as well, which is just when are you going to do these things? And, it seems like their strategy from Russell Vogt, the architect of Project 2025, who runs the Office of Management and Budget, is to do an impoundment. In other words, basically keep the funds that were appropriated for other things, impound the funds, but don't call it an impoundment. Just say, we're doing our best to get it for you. We're trying our hardest. We will. I think there was a part where you had Senator Murray speaking to Linda McMahon, and McMahon was like, our office will get in touch with yours. We'll get you some more data. And Senator Murray was like, when? The year's almost over. I mean, we're almost going to be done with the year. So when do you plan on doing those things? Because in the meantime, guidance counselors aren't being paid for, and we all care about the mental health of students and guidance counselors. School lunches aren't being given. Basic supplies, basic services for children with disabilities. And so, I think that's also why the judge said, without delay. But, the Trump regime, you and I would look at those words and say immediately, but the Trump regime looks at words like facilitate the return, and they go, okay, that doesn't mean you have to return. That just means, give it a try. We tried. Sorry. And without delay, they'll say, well, delay could mean, a year or 2 years or 3 years. Without delay doesn't mean today. How do you deal with that, Harry? I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's really true. And we talked about another YouTube. There's a little bit of tug of war going on, but you mentioned Valt. He is a first-class son of a bitch. He asserts before Congress that impoundment, any restriction on it, is unconstitutional. There's a statute that says Congress appropriates money. You can't just take, actually it says there are a few instances around the margins. You can maybe take a little, but are you kidding me? This is Congress's fiscal. That's what they do read Article 1. Congress decides what to spend. And he's actually saying that, that even after Congress has appropriated money, they have a constitutional prerogative to just countermand it. And then this was the really, you make the point of their basically bobbing and weaving and saying mealy stuff and just delaying. Valt was asked, okay, are you going to tell us what you're not giving over that Congress said? Valt's answer, maybe. So they won't even, and he's the one who would decide ostensibly, they won't even let Congress or the courts know where they are smothering the money that Congress has appropriated and not give it out. That's a breathtaking kind of, it's not even assertion of authority. It's just a assertion of an ability to just completely gum up the works of government. And this guy is, among other things, one of the principal architects of Project 2025. So where he is on the scene, you've got, even within the Trump administration, the most extreme kind of lawless view. And to the extent he's prevailing, and of course with Trump, who's so mercurial and you never know who's up and who's down and who's talking for the administration, but to the extent it's him, bad news.
It's why this case, I think, had bigger implications even than just being about the Department of Education, and why it's a big deal that New York Attorney General Leticia James succeeded. And she just continues to beat Donald Trump, and he can post all he wants about her on social media, but she's undeterred. She knows what her job is. And I know what your job is, Harry Litman. You run the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds Substack, and the Talking Feds podcast. I want everybody to subscribe to all three of those channels, because I subscribe. It's where I get my legal news from. I got to learn from someone. And Harry was one of the top DOJ officials in Main Justice in D.C. And he also was the United States Attorney in the Western District of Pennsylvania, among other positions, including clerking for 2 Supreme Court justices. And so he knows a thing or two about all of this. So everybody go to the Talking Feds YouTube and Talking Feds Substack. Harry, we appreciate you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ben. Likewise.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.meidastouch.com. All 100% USA union made.